Okay, so let's make a start. So welcome, my name is Tim Ray. I am the head of product for Sovelia. I've worked for Symetri for over 22 years. My background is mechanical focused, data management, business processes, solving customer problems and helping customers achieve. So we're gonna kick things off a little bit differently, and rather than me telling you things, I'd like you to tell me something. So we're going to start with a question. The question is, what is the most important asset your organization possesses? Now, again, just to check whether you are all awake or not, I've got some multiple choice answers and some options. So, number one, do you think the people are the most important asset? Do you think it's your products? Do you think it's your brand? Do you think it's the share price? Do you think it's the intelligence you hold within the company? Or do you think it's something else? Now, in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, next to the questions, there should be a poll button. And if you press that, and you now then submit a vote, it should indicate as to what you've said and also what other people have said. So if you submit that, again, I can see some people voting now. The votes are coming in. There's a definite leader, but I'm not going to say any more unless you haven't voted. So just seeing if anyone else votes. So we've got a few more questions like this coming in this webinar. So remember where the polls were. A few more people answering now. So on the right-hand side screen, it says polls. If you click on the polls button, you should be presented with an option. Okay, I think we've got everyone voted there. You should be able to see the answers. So let's tell you what I think. So here at Symetri, we believe that data is the most important asset that your organization owns. So maybe that's the something else column. The other things are important, but from a manufacturing design organization, the data that you hold is probably your most key. So what challenges are there around data? And how can Sovelia Core help resolve those challenges? In putting this webinar together, I tried to think about the challenges around data, and I've divided those up into 5 separate areas: creation, editing, manipulating data, searching, organizing and grouping information, controlling the information and data, and also visualizing it. So I'd like to go through some examples of that. It's very boring just looking at lists in presentations. So let's get some images and some graphics going. So here's a CAD model. This is a CAD model. It doesn't really matter what CAD program we're using. We've got multiple that we support. And in this case here, we're actually going to put in some information relevant to the system. We're entering data. We're entering that data once into the system. And when we do that and we go and look online in an HTML browser at the same product or the same item, we can see that we get the same data in the data card on the left-hand side. We're also getting a visual representation. We've got the links to it. But what about documents? Well, if I want to create a document here, I'm just going to drag it into the system, put some relevant information. Again, the fields I can define what information we want in the system, putting that down so that people can identify this. And we can create that then. It's telling me that I have to enter certain information. And once I've done that, we generate, in this case, it's a document. And we can see the document and we can see the files that are attached to that document. Now, in this case, what I want to do is I want to connect that document to the models that we've had already. And that's a simple process. So we now see we've got the new data, the old data, and the model. And now it's a simple process of selecting the old one and removing the connection between them. So we now have our model, our data, and our document all linked together, showing us that link between creation, editing, reading, and deleting. So very simple, very quick, very easy process, just giving you an example of entering the information once, and that information then we can use throughout the whole system, throughout the whole organization. Everyone in the organization gets access to that data and that information. What about searching then? Searching is one of those topics that comes up time and time again, making searches as simple as possible and as easy as they can. Might be as simple as just entering a word. In this case, I'm entering a word in the top of the screen. That then gives me some results. Now I want to filter those results and work out a more refined search. And I'm presented with lots of different ways of doing that, lots of different data fields, information, ways of reducing down the list, the search information to get to the data that I want. With links, so I'm linking back. Now what I'm doing here is I'm searching just specifically in the information that I have on the screen. So in this case, it's an assembly and a sub-assembly. I put in the wrong information, so it didn't give me any results. I put in the right information or a right word, and it's now coming back with some options. There's plenty of other ways to find that though, rather than just having to type information, and we can do that here. Maybe we want to see what areas this comes from, so we can see how we're searching and how we're finding that. So lots of visual representations of how we can find that information, how we can look for it. Here, for instance, then I might want to search for everything that is a spare part, another option, or I might want to actually look at a name, a defined field category that we have. And in this case, we're going to look at O-rings, and it gives us that O-ring section. So lots of different ways of searching for information, finding the relevant information that we want within the system. What about organizing and grouping then? Okay, we've searched for data, we found the data that we want. How do we now group that information to make it useful so that we can find it again, or we can add to it, or we can use it to do tasks in the system? That's the role of organization and grouping. And we've worked on that as well. So within organization and grouping here, you'll see that at the top, I've got subheadings that I'm heading into, different things that I'm looking at, be it items, be it documents, be it projects that we're working with. And we get graphical information at the bottom of the screen, and we can go and look at that and work on that information. We've also got, we call them favorites. So in the top right-hand corner, things like the files you've looked at previously, things that you're working on, things that you've starred, or maybe in this case, things that you've tagged. And you can tag lots of things and put them together. Again, you might want to make a selection out of those tags and use that information to link it together in the future or add information together. So just quickly, I'm grabbing two things here. I'm going to save it, lots of saving going on, make a new tag, call it O-rings, apply these to that. And now when we look at our favorites, we've got that section of O-rings. Also, again, the data that we're looking at, the information, the columns of data that we're looking at, lots of different ways that we can actually set those up into the view that we want, and then remove and add columns to give us the information. Once we've got that, then again, we want to save that to our list that we can come back to it. And then we want to be able to share that within others within the organization. So we've created our list there and shared it. Maybe we come back to the top, the search that we had originally, we put in our name or our information in the top. That gives us a list of all of the information. And now what we'd like to do is save that search so that we can use it again. And again, it's as simple as typing in the name that we want the search to have, creating the search, and it's there now and available. And whenever I want to use it again, I can come back to that list and work with it. So sharing is, I mean, searching is great, ways of then building up that data and working with them are extremely important. So all of this is excellent, but data on its own is not good without control. How do we control that data and get the right people to look at the right information in the right time? How do we make sure that our users are looking at the right information? How do we make sure that they're not accessing the wrong information or information ahead of time that potentially could lead to a wrong decision? That's the role of control. So here I'm logging onto the system. I've been given some access rights to do with my user account. So for me, I am an administrator as I'm set up at the moment, and we've got information there about changing my password and looking at the information and customizing settings and information for me. If we look at that, then I can see lots of information on the screen because I'm set with this particular user rights. So you'll see that there's lots of data on the system, lots of things that I can do here. Things like revise, I can revise it because I have the permissions and the rights to. I can also change the status of those things. But maybe others in the organization, so I'm an administrator here, I'm changing the values for a user. That user then, if I get that user to log on, they get a very different view of the system. And their view is very much a cut down, simplified view. We only want them to look at information. This is using our supplier portal. So in this case, we just want a supplier to look at just a specific subset of data. And in this case, it's to do with the robot arm. They don't see anything else. They don't see all the original data I was looking at. I can still see that robot arm and I've got access to it because I've got the rights, but they don't have any access to that information. So control is everything with this. We need the data, but we need to be able to control it. And the last part to this then is visualization. How can we make looking at data and viewing data and working with data on a daily basis, how can we make that more intuitive, more easy to use for users in general? And part of that, we think, is visualizing. By having some visual keys in the system, it helps users to be able to imagine the data that they're working with. So again, here we've got a very visual way of looking at information. What you see on screen with lots of prompts, lots of various attachments. We're given the status. We're given lots of information. Here I'm looking at revisions and very visual graphic things on the screen, including comments that we can make. Maybe I want to take a closer look at a drawing. And again, visually, we want to see that drawing on the screen. So rather than having to print it out and go and find a computer and go and find a printer, and we can do that. This could be on the shop floor. We could help people on the shop floor to visualize the information that they want to. As we look at that on a level up, then we can see the assembly that drawing comes from and the part that it's associated to. Maybe we want to visualize just the part. Maybe we want to do an inspection check between what we've got in our hand and what's available. Maybe we would just want to check that by dimensioning. So just a visual representation of a dimension to check the part that I've got, the physical part, against the virtual part. Not using the CAD tool here, haven't had to load any other things. We're just using the system as it is to get that information out of the system. And that also then leads on to assemblies. Not just looking at the parts, but maybe let's look at the assembly. Let's look at how this piece goes together, what parts we need, and we can cut down that and have a look at it in a way then that we can see the parts inside. We can turn off things, make it easier to look at. What are we looking at? But also then we need the control around that. And in this case, we can then see the full list of information relative to the picture on the screen. So we're starting to understand our design, where it is, what it looks like, what it's related to, and everything's in a really visual way of looking at it. In this case here, we can add color. So again, this might be maybe we're from an eco point of view, we're looking at the most carbon to the least carbon. We might be trying to identify similar items, things like that. So very visual ways of working. So what's the value for your organization in all of that? Well, the first thing that we're doing is we're reducing the non-value added tasks within the organization. It enables faster time to market. It also reduces the errors in the system. And that's the second point, avoiding errors by incorrect product information, errors by not having the right information available, errors by having to enter the data or information twice, doing lots of things repetitively. It's also seamless collaboration. Again, everyone who gets access to the system sees the information. There's one set of information. We're not taking off different things or drawings or paper copies or things that could get misaligned between the people in the organization. And the last thing that's quite hard to describe or quite hard to show you is integration. We can take all of that data and all of that information and integrate it with other business systems. Things like ERP solutions, enterprise resource planning solutions, or maybe it's customer management systems. Maybe we want to integrate with other systems in the company. We have a sales configurator tool that we can integrate with. So integration is key to that data. Okay, time to ask you another question now then. So polls at the ready. Here's the question then. Is Excel the primary tool that you use for your bills of materials? And I've got some options for you. So is it yes, Excel is our primary tool for bill of materials? Is it no, we export it out and then we do other things with it? Do you use Vault or some other PDM solution from the CAD tools? No, we use X or we use something else. What's Excel? Or maybe you do something else. So submit your vote and we'll see. Bit more of a spread on this one, I think. Lots of people voting. I'll give you some more time just to make sure. So don't forget, in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a poll button. And if you click on the poll button, you can then enter an answer. And once you've entered an answer, then you'll see the information as to what everyone else has put and your answer relative to that. I'll give you a few more minutes just to look at that. Okay, so I'm pleased that nobody put what is Excel. That's the first one. But also it seems very popular that Excel is the tool of choice to work on your bill of materials and also to export out your bill of materials, maybe from Word or into Word, to be able to work with it. I'm pleased to tell you that I think there's a better solution. And let's take a look at that now. So first of all, what do we understand by a bill of materials? I want to make this clear. So this isn't my definition. This is someone else's definition, but I think this is a really good example. So a bill of materials is an extensive list of raw materials, components, instructions, for construction, for manufacture, to repair, and also produce or service the product. So components are only mentioned a little bit there. Lots of instructions, some around raw materials, some around building, but also some things into the future as well, repairing and service. And I think those things are going to become more important in the future, especially as we get into the environmental awareness. So what does your bill of materials look like? Now, depending on who you are in an organization, your bill of materials might look really different to somebody else's. There's lots of examples on the screen now for the kinds of bills and materials that people have. But ultimately, the bill of materials should be dynamic. It should be ever changing, or it should be able to be changed. It should always be up to date. It should contain relevant information, and it should be available to everyone in the organization. Now, ask this about your spreadsheets. Are they dynamic? Are they always up to date? Do they contain the relevant information? And are they always available? So at Symetri, we believe that bills and materials are critical, a critical part of the process of your design. And as such, we put some tools together into our items and BOM management to look at bills and materials specifically. It's almost a subset of data and some very specific tasks around data. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to show you those and give you an example of some of those now. So again, I've got a video here for you to watch. Again, I'm starting with the CAD tools here. And from a CAD point of view, I've built up a certain amount of bill of materials information. These are our components involved. And in this case, I'm going to push my bill of materials information into Sovelia Core. Once I've got that information into Sovelia Core and I log on with my credentials, we get access to that information. And that, in my head, is just a start point for the creation of our bill of materials information. We want access to the components, we want access to the drawings, but we also want access to lots of other things. We want to be able to search and look, we want to be able to see, we want to be able to look at the bill of materials in lots of different ways. Maybe I'm on the shop floor, production-wise, I want to see this information in a visual way so that I can understand it, what's in front of me versus what I've got on the screen. I also want to look then at the bill of materials information differently. So maybe here I'm looking at an engineering change order, and we'll come on to those in a minute. Is there anything relevant to what I'm seeing? We don't get that kind of information with Excel. Other different kinds of ways of looking at it. You know, are there production information that I want? So is the bill of materials going to be put together in a different way for production? Is there anything that's traceable? Do I need to capture serial numbers? Is that a standalone product on its own? Maybe I want to look at this in context of a project. Where does my design sit in the project? What about all those other documents that we need in a project orientation? Specifications, sales information. We also want to see things like, graphics here, or visuals, or sales or marketing material based on that. So lots of different ways of looking at the bill of materials and working with it. So a subset of data, but what's the value to your organization by not having Excel as your primary bill of materials tool, but by choosing something else and by having a more integrated solution? Well, the value is that you can add other information to the bill of materials, not just the CAD data. We can make a holistic bill of materials along the whole life cycle of the product. We can capture the bill of materials for the whole organization and their use. Again, depending on how I log on to the system is how I see the bill of materials. Depending on how I organize the columns is, again, the data that I see for the bill of materials. So again, from a production point of view, I might want to see certain information. From a sales point of view, I might want to see other information. From a purchasing point of view, again, I want to see that data in a different way. I always want it to be up to date. If we make revisions, if we make changes, if something updates in the CAD model, I want to make sure that those changes follow through in the organization. We all want to see the BOM in our own way. We want to tailor it to the needs and the content that we've got. And we also want to be able to make well-informed decisions. And those well-informed decisions only happen if everything we've got is up to date and everything is the best that it can be. So Let's have another question. How do you capture change in your organization? So let's take a look at this. Do you have a paper-based system for capturing change? Do you have a dedicated system to capture change? Or maybe you don't have any formal process to look at change in your organization, or maybe something else. So at the top of your poll screen, if you scroll up on the right hand side, you should get access to that. Then have a go and fill in your answers, and let's see what we get. So remember, scroll up into your poll. It'll appear on the top of the list. Make your choice, and then you'll get to see what everyone else is putting down. Again, the answers for this are quite varied. I'll give it a few more seconds just to let everyone have a look. Okay, so if you've answered the poll, you'll see that it's quite varied across the answers. Some have a dedicated system, some have no formal system, some have something else, and some people have a paper-based system. So let's take a look at this subject in more detail. So a question here to ask yourself, there's no poll for this one, but why do we want to capture change? Why do we capture change in organizations? What is it about change that's so important? Well, I believe, or lots of people believe, that change is the way that we improve the quality. There could be a number of quality things that we improve. It could be the quality of the product, could be the quality of our documentation, could be the quality of the processes that we follow. So it's all about change. In my mind, equals quality. We only change something to improve the quality of the process, quality of the product that we're making, quality of the information we're producing or we're sharing in our organization or to our customers. So at Symetri then, we believe that companies should have the flexibility to capture change in many different ways. We have a general module that we call Engineering Change Management, but within that, we have two separate sections. This is how important change is in our eyes and in organizations' eyes. There's two kind of options here, if you like. One's called your change request. We're requesting a change. Maybe it's not essential to the quality of the product, or it's not a primary change, but maybe by adding a hole somewhere, it might make it easier to assemble, or maybe by adding this information into the system, someone can see it in an easier way. So it's a request for change. That as opposed to an engineering change order. And in a change order, this, in my eyes, is something that we have to act on. Maybe there's a problem with a part that's come in and it's out of specification, or maybe we can't get hold of something anymore and we need to change it. Maybe we've had a failing in a piece of software and we need to update the code for it. So different ways of looking at change. Is it a request for change, or is it an order to change? It has to be acted on. So within the system, then, we provide a standard change process, two standard change processes, actually, one for change request and one for change order. The one for change request is less intense, and change order needs to go through a lot more processes or stages in order to get approval, because everyone needs to be aware of what that change is, how it happens, what it's good for. And you can propose change right within the software, and you can also propose change relevant to the information and the data that's in the system. You can also, as many of our customers do, start with the standard and then they want to customize it. We want to add in an extra step. We want to add in some extra data. We want to have a different way of it flowing through the system. We want a different result to come from this. So let's take a look at our standard process, and I can go through and give you some pointers as to what the change process means, why it's important, and what elements there are to start with. So again, it's me that's logged in. I'm making a change to do with this component, and I need to change an actual physical something. So I'm picking an engineering change order. I'm defining what that change is, some information about it, and then I'm entering that into the system. I'm the one that knows this information. We also have some standard information. So the boxes that I can enter here are drop-down lists and fields that must be entered. So text boxes, this is a compatibility issue. We can also assign people within the organization to then be able to carry out these tasks in the future. And we can actually see here what it's connected to. So again, all the data is connected. It's not just a system on its own. Now that we have that system, I'm going to approve it and I'm going to make a comment, and I want to include the person who needs to do this into the approval or into the next step change. If I then log on as that person, in the top right-hand corner, I'll get a notification, and there's my change that I need to do. Now that we've got that, we can see the data again. I can go and use that data to make the change, make the modification. With that modification made, then I can now pass it on to the next person that needs to and make a note about that. That person then can log in, see the updated change, see the information, see the process where we're at, what the status is, what they need to do, approve it, look at the information that's there, or maybe reject it. But in this case, they've approved it. I'm now the final approver, and I can add this to the system and approve it, and that changes then into the system and live. So standard process, really good at capturing information and the reason for change and why we want to do it. And that's the value that we're getting out of this. We're capturing change and we're capturing the reason for change. We have a value that you can use a standard system almost out the box, and then you can have a customized system that you can grow as your journey around quality improves and you become more aware of it in your organization. It's seamless integration, so there are no silos. Some of the people in that in the poll said that they had a dedicated system, or that they had no formal system at the moment, or they had a paper-based system. Within those, then, unless it's integrated within your organization, that information can get lost. It can become not attached to the right information. People can't make the right choice. They can't make the right decision because they don't have the right information to hand. And it also is going to reduce the cost because we're able to capture the change earlier in the process, and within that, then that reduces the cost. So we've looked at some great areas. We've only scratched the surface by looking at some of the elements around the processes and the workflows that we have and the solutions that we offer to our customers around Sovelia Core. If you want to ask a question, then please look in the bottom right-hand corner for the question section, and you can click on that and then start typing your questions now. While you're thinking about a question you may have, or while you're reflecting on the information that we've had in the webinar so far, then I'm just going to tell you a little bit more around Sovelia and a little bit more around Symetri. So think about those questions if you've got them. So Our Sovelia Core then is one of the products in our family of products dedicated or aimed at mechanical users of the system. So tools for productivity, tools for engineering process productivity, tools for configuration and business process. So we offer a lot of different tools and lots of different value that we can add to organizations. Sovelia is part of our suite of technology that Symetri developed internally themselves. We also have things around Navigate. Navigate's based on architecture and construction around Revit. And we also have CQ. CQ products are based for IT and IT professionals around licensing usage and installation and implementation. Symetri as a whole have over 1,000 employees. We have over 100 developers. We operate or have offices in 9 countries. We've roughly got about 20,000 customers, 400,000 daily users, and a turnover of 3.1 billion SEK per year. We have some very long-standing and loyal customers using the solutions, also working on improving them and implementing them with us and adding new features and functionality into the software. If you want to look at any of the case studies, you can do that by looking on Sovelia. With that note, we'll switch to any questions. Do we have any questions?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We have a question here. Are the Sovelia Core properties using Inventor custom properties, and do these tie into Vault?
Yeah, cool. Great question. So yes, we use both the standard and also custom iProperties inside Inventor. And we need to integrate all of that together, because otherwise, what's the use in having one connected data stream? And yes, we can integrate to Vault as well. And we use Vault as a storage tool for the CAD designs. So we don't take the CAD files and store those inside Sovelia Core. We would use Vault as the tool to store the CAD files, because they're quite large. They're quite intensive in terms of network traffic and internet traffic and things like that. So we tend to use, if it was Inventor, we would use Vault as the storage tool. And what we want to do is things like lightweight viewables. We want to take things like the PDF version of the drawing, put those into Sovelia Core, or everyone in the organization can use that. And we can take the property information, and we can also pass the property information backwards and forwards between them. Some of that property information might not be useful for the organization, and likewise, some of that information for the organization might not be useful in the CAD world. So we have the ability to start with the iProperties inside Inventor or SolidWorks or Creo or AutoCAD, or any of the other CAD packages that you want to use or you do use, and we can take that information, and that's our start point to put that into the system. So that was from Craig. Craig, I hope that's answered your question. Have we got anything else?
There is a question if we can get the PDF presentation later.
Yeah, we can do that. It might be tricky with the videos, because the videos are embedded into the presentation, but I think we can probably do that, and I'll try and find a way of sharing it. Yeah, so I can investigate that.
Good. And then there is one final question. Where can I get more information about this?
Cool. So my email address is there. If I take a look back, if you want more information around all of Sovelia products, then I would head to sovelia.com. Lots of case studies there, lots of specific information around the products. And if there's something specific, then I would say reach out to me or reach out to if you have a local representative, then they would be able to help you.
Good. Let's see if there is one more question. Does the BOM export support model states?
Yes, so we have some of our customers are using model states. We tend to export in two options. Either you can put it back to the base view, or you can export it in the specific view that you're working with. So yes, we do support model states. I don't think we fully support them, but we have a workflow or a number of workflows that our customers are using around model states.
Good. That seems to be all the questions so far.
Fantastic. Well, we're doing quite well there. That's my 45 minutes. So that's as long as I wanted. I'm sure you're all very busy people. So thank you very much for participating in the webinar. Thank you for your feedback and your participation in the surveys. And again, if you've got anything more you want to get in touch, then my email is available there. Please do that. So for now, I'll say thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day.